All right, so we are going to get started. Like I was saying, I'm so excited to share this book with you, and I'm so excited to give MassUndocuFund and Compass Family Services a space to share about the amazing work that they are doing right now to support folks who are being impacted by this pandemic that we're going through. So I'm going to get this started off by pulling up my slides. Let me put that in full screen. And a couple other reminders that I wanted to just mention. So if you can keep yourselves on mute throughout the presentation, and again, I might ask you to turn your your video off if there's connectivity issues. Again, this is being recorded, so if you're not comfortable with that, turn your video off. Most of the presentation might not be super kid-friendly, but it will be, obviously, when we're reading the picture book, that will be kid-friendly. So I'll make note to let you know if you have any youngsters around that you can bring them by to hear the book. And then I just wanted to put out kind of like a trigger warning that there will be some discussion of mental health and depression and suicidality in this presentation. So I'll let you know when that's sort of coming up, but want people to be aware of that too. All right, so let's get started. I wanted to start off just with some introductions. And first of all, I'll introduce myself. My name is Ori. I am the author of The Butterfly Who Flew in the Rain. I'm originally an East Coast native, but I've been living out in San Francisco for 2 years. And what brought me over there was mostly my passion with working with children. So I moved out to San Francisco to work as a garden educator in an elementary school, but I've since shifted more towards the field of mental health. I'm really passionate about social emotional learning for young children, especially in elementary age, which has led me to enter a program is a master's in counseling psychology. So I'm really interested in incorporating my passion for social emotional learning and childhood psychology and writing. And that's sort of how I ended up writing this book, which I'll tell you a little bit more about. But I wanted to hand it over to my amazing partner in crime, Winny, to share a little bit about herself. So go ahead, Winny.
Thank you, Ori. Hello, everyone. My name is Winny Kwong-Sito, and I am based in the East Coast in Boston. I was originally born in Colombia. My background, my heritage is Chinese, so I'm Chinese American, born in Colombia. I'm really grateful for this opportunity to have, illustrated for this book. I've always loved art and specifically specialize in watercolor. And full-time, I do product design in tech. So it's really nice to be able to merge the two and be able to use my hobby for something different, especially when it comes to mental health and talking about how do you express emotions and overcoming adversity, especially through like a visual illustration. So thank you so much, Ori.
Yeah, thank you, Winnie. So next I'll let you know what you are in for today and kind of just go over the agenda. And one other quick reminder I wanted to put in there is that at any point throughout today, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to throw them in the chat or feel free to be active in the chat, otherwise talking to each other. We're happy to have a conversation going on while the presentations are happening. So today we'll start off by talking a little bit about the journey to publishing. And it's actually a really deeply personal story for me, how this book came to be. So I'll talk a little bit about that, and then also just the practical sides of how this book actually was written and illustrated. Then the hopefully much awaited moment, we'll have our book reading, which I'm so excited to share the complete final version that's off to the printers. And then we'll have a little bit of a discussion around the philosophy this book is based on. And then what I'm probably most looking forward to is giving Compass Family Services and MassUndocuFund an opportunity to share a little bit about their work and the communities that they serve. And then lastly, like I mentioned, there will be a Q&A at the end. So again, feel free to put your questions in the chat, and Winnie will be monitoring that so we can get to some of those questions at the end. So to get started, I have to take you all the way back to the year 1998 when I was only 4 years old. And the story of this book and how this came to be starts with this picture. So this is a little illustration that I made when I was only 4 years old in preschool. As you can see, it's this picture of a butterfly, and I wrote this caption. I'm assuming my teacher wrote it for me while I dictated, but I said, if I were a butterfly, I would fly as high as the clouds, I would fly in the rain. And I forgot about this picture for many, many years, and then rediscovered it maybe 5 years ago when I was packing up my childhood home. And I was really captivated by this like amazing imagery of this like gentle creature, like a butterfly, that just wouldn't let anything stop it from flying, and that it could overcome any obstacle. Like, and I imagine these heavy raindrops falling on its wings, and it continued to fly. So I took this picture on my phone and stored it away for a while. And then a friend of mine a while later saw it on my phone, and kind of talked to me about how she actually felt like I was captured in this picture, and that I was this person that could sort of overcome any obstacle or anything that might come in my way. And I really identified with that as someone who I felt like I could overcome any challenge and do anything that I set my mind to. And I sort of carried that with me in my heart for a few years. And I'm going to flash forward 20 years, and this is sort of where the trigger warning comes in. So I flash forward to 2018, and I was I had been struggling a little bit with mental health issues for a couple years, sort of increasingly so since college. Was struggling with depression and anxiety, and beginning to start to feel suicidal. And I chose this picture here on the right because so much of my time experiencing these mental health struggles, I just pushed it aside. I didn't open up to anyone. I put on this complete facade of always being okay and always being happy and always had this big smile on my face. And I sort of just always was hoping and wishing that all this would just go away. And I went on this path of sort of like a self-help book binge reading. And I was reading like so many books trying to, help me get through this time in my life where I was feeling so down on myself. And nothing was really working, and nothing really had a big impact until a few months later, my big sister, one of my 3 big sisters, sent me this book, The Happiness Trap. And this book is incredible. And it's based on the philosophies of acceptance and commitment therapy. And I've highlighted on the right side of the screen here some of the concepts and philosophies or that acceptance and commitment therapy is based on. Unfortunately, I don't have time to dive into all of it, but I highlighted acceptance. And the key part of this philosophy, and what was so important for me to hear in my mental health struggle, was that I was constantly pushing away everything that I was feeling and refusing to believe that it was there, and thinking that I couldn't go on with my life until it was all gone. And this philosophy just changes that and tells you that negative thoughts, negative feelings, negative situations can be okay, and you can learn to accept them and learn to live with them. You may not like them, but you can still learn to connect to your values and the things that you find most important in your life and take action on those values. So this was really critical for me to learn about. But of course, it wasn't a quick fix of learning about that. So I was still struggling going forward into the next month. And part of my learning to accept what I was going through was opening up to the people who I was closest to at the time, and who I was living with. I was living with my dad, and my dad had no awareness of anything that I was going through. And in part of my journey of trying to accept what I was struggling with, I told him one day about everything that I was feeling and how horrible I was feeling, and he was shocked. And we talked it through, and he, gave me a lot of encouraging words. And a few days later, he sent me an email, and at the end of the email, he put this proverb, which said, "Just when the caterpillar thought the world was over, he became a butterfly." And in that moment, that picture that I had kind of forgotten, that picture that I made when I was 4 years old, just like burst back into my memory. And suddenly I saw the connections between that picture, between acceptance and commitment therapy, and that butterfly learning to persevere in the rain, even though it wasn't ideal. And then this quote that my dad shared. So that very night, I stayed up late in my bed. I remember it so well. And I wrote this poem that is on the left-hand side, which at the time was the butterfly who learned to fly in the rain. And I was so excited about it. The next morning, I did all these little illustrations and I posted it on Facebook. And folks were like, gave me great feedback. Were like, "You should turn this into a children's book." And I'm one to get really excited about ideas. So that month, I sat down every single day. I wasn't working at the time because I had a physical injury that was handicapping me. And I sat down every day at my dining room table and I made these illustrations like this on the right. So I did the first draft of the book. But a year passed and I decided that I wanted to get someone a little more talented than me to take on this project of illustrating it and make it as best as it possibly could. So I put out a call to a few illustrators to do their renditions of what they thought this book could look like. And I posted them on social media. And the one on the right received like overwhelming support. And that one was Winnie's. And so we were connected via Facebook through a mutual friend. And then we worked together for a year, worked really hard to get this book to the point where it is right now. And when I say we, I mean mostly Winnie, because she was doing a ton of work to get these illustrations as beautiful as they are. So again, amazing job, Winnie. And that brings us to where we are today. We set a goal of raising around $7,000 to self-publish this book. We've surpassed that goal. We now are set to print 1,000 books in October to sell. And now that we've surpassed our fundraising goal, we're able to start taking all the profits that we're getting and donate them to charity. So just so far, we've already raised $1,050 for charity, and that will be split equally between the two orgs that are here today. We've pre-sold 408 of the books out of the 1,000 that we're planning to print. And then 134 of those books have been bought and designated to be sold to charity. And then something I'm really excited about, which just happened, is we were featured in the Boston Globe. We had a wonderful article featured, written just the other day. So that was really cool to see that our work was getting out there. So without further ado, what I would really, really love to do now is get to share with you this story. So here we go. The Butterfly Who Flew in the Rain by Ori Gutin and illustrated by Winny Kwong-Sito. A small egg sat at the end of a stick. It hatched as the rain fell down very quick. Cody the caterpillar opened his eyes, and what he saw was quite the surprise. The shining sun was nowhere to be found, and all the critters of the forest frowned. No one greeted little Cody hello, they all hid down in the grasses below. The colorful birds did not fly or chirp, nor did the chatty chipmunks dare to burp. The stormy sky was so gloomy and dark, each falling raindrop left a painful mark. As the days went on, the sky did not change. Cody felt so lonely and very strange. During his short life, he never had fun. Not a single moment, not even one. Then, on one mysterious afternoon, Cody's yellow skin turned white like the moon. His crunchy chrysalis began to form as the sky above continued to storm. A hard shell closed up around our small friend, and he thought, oh no, this must be the end. To him, life had always been hard and sad. He never felt very happy or glad. Not once did he feel friendship or love, or see the sun in the sky up above. But truth be told, this was far from the end for a frightened, furry, six-legged friend. As Cody transformed in his chrysalis, the sun came out and gave the earth a kiss. As the sun's warm rays shone down on the ground, all the animals came and gathered round. Cody's cocoon began to snap and crack, and his beautiful wings poked through the back. He quickly broke free from his moon-white shell, and all the animals began to yell. Dancing deer sang with the purest delight. Terrific turtles cheered with all their might. Fancy frogs screamed, I cannot believe my sight, and beautiful birds celebrated in flight. All of a sudden, Cody began to cry. Why do you cry, Mr. Butterfly? Why? Cody smiled wide and lifted his head. Before, I had only seen rain, he said, for what seemed like many long and hard years. He paused, sniffling and wiping his tears. Now, the clouds have cleared, the sun is bright, and each of your sweet smiles shines like a light. For some time after this delightful day, life continued on this wonderful way. The sunny sun shined, the animals played, and when they were tired, they rested in shade. Each day, Cody sat with his new friend, Blue Jay, watching the flowers bloom and the trees sway. He would turn to his friend and simply say, I am just so grateful. Oh, what a day. Then, one very horrible afternoon, which came upon them all too very soon, the dark clouds began to shout and rumble, and soon heavy rain started to tumble. Seeing the rain, Cody let out a scream. This must be some sort of terrible dream. How can it be raining again so soon? I want to crawl back into my cocoon. Blue Jay, seeing his friend get oh so blue, humbly said, I used to be just like you. When it would rain, I would get down and sad. I cannot do anything but be very mad. But over time, I learned something quite great. Let me tell you, I will not make you wait. This rain does not have to ruin your day. Come with me, let's practice another way. We can splash in mud puddles down below, test the waters with our biggest big toes, try to catch falling raindrops on our tongues, or take deep breaths and let air fill our lungs. And if you cannot do anything at all, if the rain makes you feel so sad and small, just sit back and watch the rain like a show, because in the end, this rain too shall go. Despite his terribly tremendous fright, Cody realized Blue Jay was surely right. He said, the rain might have me feeling down, but that does not mean I can only frown. I can breathe deeply, connect to my heart, feel my feelings fully, and find a fresh start. The rain clouds will not hold me back at all. I will fly high, even though I could fall. With that, Cody looked up toward the sky. He took a breath and decided to fly. He flew with joy and with no fear of pain. He flew in the clouds and he flew in the rain. The end. So there it is. Yeah, so thank you so much for listening to that, and I hope you enjoyed it. And for those of you who purchased the book, I hope you like what you purchased. And I want to comment a little bit about this before I pass the mic, what you see here on the screen. At the back of the book is a portion on social emotional learning that discusses how this book relates to acceptance and commitment therapy. And it gives you the perspective as a parent or a teacher of how you might talk about this with your child. It gives you discussion questions that you could use to foster a conversation around it with your child. And then what I'm really, really excited about is this piece on the right side of the screen. I created this kind of like children's self-help workbook called Cody the Butterfly's Guide to Overcoming Obstacles. And it takes you through the step-by-step philosophy of ACT in a child-friendly way to help your student or your child or whoever it is overcome an obstacle that's facing them in their life. So I'll quickly skim through it, but I hope you take a look at it later on. It sort of starts out by helping kids determine their values. Some cute pictures. Talks about how they can connect to their values with action. It talks about what an obstacle is and how that might get in the way of connecting to what's most important to us in our lives. And then it talks about that key piece of acceptance and how when we accept the obstacle instead of fight it, it leads to us being able to think of new actions that allow us to connect to our values. And then finally, it kind of takes them through this step-by-step planning where they can think of ways to overcome an obstacle they're facing, have a wonderful little coloring page, and then this is the final page, which I really love because all those little characters just look so cute. So I'm going to stop my share for a quick moment, and while we were just getting ready to publish this book, COVID-19 was hitting its peak. And me and Winny just thought that because this book was about overcoming obstacles and helping children get through the most difficult moments of their lives, or difficult moments that they were facing, we felt it just made so much sense to donate the profits from our book to organizations that were helping families right now get through difficult moments in their lives and helping children get through difficult moments in their lives. So we decided to split the profits of the book 50-50 and each choose a nonprofit that we wanted to donate the money to in our local communities. So I chose Compass Family Services, which is a phenomenal agency that works with the homeless population here in San Francisco. And I am now going to pass the mic over to Stacy from Compass Family Services to tell you a little bit about their work and give my voice a little bit of a break. So Stacy, take it away and just let me know when you want me to pull up the slides and the video.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Ori. We're very honored that you chose Compass Family Services to benefit from the proceeds of the book. We appreciate it very much. And it fits in perfect with what we do at Compass Family Services. I'll give you a little bit of a quick overview, and then we'll watch a short video. And we have a few slides on some of the COVID impact. But for a quick overview on Compass Family Services, I've been with Compass for 6 years now, and it's amazing. I wanted to work there so bad whenever I saw the website and learned more about what they were doing. Not only what they were doing, but how they do it. It's very impressive. Everything is very smart, and it's all goal-focused on having a long-term positive effect for success for all of our families that are experiencing homelessness and at risk of becoming homeless. This past fiscal year, we helped over 6,000 parents and children, and the majority of that, about 70%, 65 to 70% are children under the age of 18. So it's pretty massive in San Francisco. And once COVID hit, it's been more damaging for so many families that were on their way to success on stable housing, and then they had the rug pulled out from under them all over again. Compass works in several different ways. We have 9 different programs. We've been around for 106 years, and we've been helping families over that whole time in many ways. But over the last 30 plus years, we've been focused on family homelessness, and that's because family homelessness looks and acts a lot differently than what most people think. We have established 9 different programs over the years, and that includes obviously a family shelter. And we also have a transitional program. It's a little bit longer than a shelter stay, and everything is very comprehensive there as well. We also have childcare. Childcare can make the difference between homelessness and being stably housed. So we have enriched childcare, and we also have childcare subsidy programs to get more families to be able to receive childcare, preschool. But our childcare program is also enriched. It's specialized to help the children get their emotional and their physical development caught back up. So when they go to kindergarten, they're ready to compete and learn on day one. And this book will be very handy at all of our childcare programs. We also have housing programs, and we also have an internal clinical program as well. So all of our families have access to individual and family and couple therapy, and that includes everything, even child shadowing at our childcare programs. So we work with them individually. So we've been doing a lot of stuff over the years, and it's really grown and expanded to be able to help more families. Like I was saying, when COVID hit, we knew it was going to be intense. We knew that there was going to be a lot more struggles for all of our families, and that we knew we were going to gain a lot more families that were facing uncertainty, especially housing instability, and also food insecurity. That's one of our major things that we're doing right now. If we can do the video, and you'll see in action what we've been doing the last 5.5 months.
Pre-COVID, we had about 230 new families coming through our doors each quarter, but since April 1st, we've seen 470 new families. Early on, we made a commitment that no family would go hungry at Compass. Since mid-March, our spending on groceries has increased from $800 a month to $11,000 a month. As I'm sure you know, in COVID times, everything is more difficult. Renting vehicles to transport food, deploying staff several times a week to the food bank and to local supermarkets, doing home deliveries to families that can't go out to shop. And then we're bringing in hot meals to our sheltered families who can't safely use our communal kitchen right now. Change has pretty much been the only constant. Change and putting families first.
Time we were down on our last dollar. We didn't have anywhere to go, nowhere to take a shower. We were running low on food, and we ended up hooking up with this Compass Family Services, and they, by the grace of God, ended up helping us with a place. Started off in a homeless shelter, but then they helped us with some food. They helped us with getting the shower, and then they put us into a hotel. And also they hooked us up with gift cards. And that, man, this has been a blessing, and I don't know where we would be at without you guys.
And there's an update to that video as well. Our grocery bill now per month is over $20,000. We are not able to be open 5 days a week currently because of COVID, and so we have drop-in days on Tuesdays and Fridays, and we see about anywhere from 150 to 200 families each day that are coming to get groceries, that are
Stacy, I think you just got muted there. There you go.
Oh, am I back on? Okay, sorry about
Yes.
that. I wanted to give an update on since that video was made a couple of months back, our grocery bill that went from $1,000 a month to $11,000 a month is now over $20,000 a month. We have drop-in services 2 days of the week. We're not able to be open 5 days a week right now because of COVID. And so families are coming, 150 to 200 families a day, to get groceries and to get diapers and wipes and other emergency supplies, as well as mail. We're the mailing address for over 600 families. So it's been pretty intense. And if we can do the slides, we fixed a few slides to show some of the data. We collect a lot of data on all of our families. This is from this last fiscal year that ended June 30th. So this shows the uptick in families that we have seen. And on the next slide, this shows families served by month. And you see where it turns green, that's where COVID and shelter in place hit, and then the peak, and then it goes down a little bit. But the reason why that ticked down is because we actually had to close some of our drop-in days because of the protests and the riots in downtown San Francisco. Where our main service hub is located at City Hall at Civic Center. So that was pretty much ground zero for a lot of the protests and riots. And on the next slide, this shows the increase as well by quarter. And on the next slide, I wanted to show you this one. This is our demographics of the families that we serve. And on the next slide, the reasons for homelessness. Our families are reporting, what was it that was the point where they became homeless. And eviction is still the main big bully here in town. Even with the moratorium on evictions in San Francisco, it's still happening. A lot of our families are too nervous to try to fight back with their landlords. And so we have been handing out since day one eviction protection notices for landlords for our clients to give to them. And as you also see, violence was another big cause over this last year, and family conflict. That I wanted to point that out. So many families that are legitimately homeless are having to hop around in different segments. A mom and a baby can go one direction, a father can go another direction, and kids can be handed out to friends and family, and they could be moving in 2, sometimes 3 different segments, hopping around with other families or friends. And that family conflict could be them getting pushed out because there's just not enough room and resources to keep a whole nother family in each home. So to wind it up, I just want to thank Ori again and Winnie. The illustrations are beautiful, and congratulations on getting that Boston Globe article. That really increased a lot of awareness, and we really appreciate it. And we can't wait till you get back to San Francisco so we can meet in person. 6 feet away.
While wearing masks. Yes.
Yes.
Stacy, thank you so much for that presentation and for giving us all that information and the insight to how the homeless community is being impacted by this. I mean, it's really startling to see how sharp the increase had been since shelter in place took hold, and how many families are in need right now. And I mean, the sheer fact that you're giving $20,000 a month just in food, the most basic necessity to families across the Bay or in San Francisco, is really incredible. So thank you guys all for the amazing work that you're doing to support our community.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I want to pass it over to Winnie. So as I said, we each got to choose an organization from our local community. And Winnie in Boston chose MassUndocuFund, and I want to give her a little bit of a space to introduce them and say why it was an important cause for her to contribute to. So I'm going to pass the mic over to Winnie, and then we'll get it over to MassUndocuFund. So go ahead, Winnie.
Great, awesome, thank you, Ori. Before I start, I do want to remind folks that if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And with that, I chose MassUndocuFund. So when Ori and I decided to split the profit amongst 2 different nonprofits, I did some research. I didn't really know where to go. There's so many organizations that you can choose, and I wanted to make sure that I wanted to choose something that really resonated with me, that was honest and genuine and would put good use to that money, right? So I actually want to give a shout out to Debbie, who's on this call, for introducing me to MassUndocuFund. And after I did some research, I really fell in love with their mission. And as a preview, they basically provide different resources to the undocumented communities in Mass. And it resonated with me because it's not a community that folks talk about. But I will pass it to Juan Pablo Blanco, who will do a much better job at explaining what you all do.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. My name is Juan Blanco, and I work for Massachusetts Jobs for Justice, and I am the admin and intake coordinator for the MassUndocuFund. First of all, Winny and Ori, you all have created this beautiful piece of art that so many families and children are going to be able to enjoy, and it's so incredible to see this come together. I also want to thank Compass Family Services. It's so inspiring to see the work y'all have been doing for so long. And also shout out to Debbie. I don't think we've met, but thank you for making that connection. So Ori, if you don't mind sharing the slides. All right, so what is MassUndocuFund? We're a fund that was created specifically to assist the undocumented population of Massachusetts. In Massachusetts, we have over 250,000 undocumented folks. We're a pretty small state, so it's actually a large number of folks that fit this community. And this is a fund that we've been able to fundraise over $1 million to provide cash assistance to over 3,000 undocumented and mixed status families. These funds have been distributed by the fund, and also we partner with over 10 organizations throughout the state to be able to have better reach and to sort of pull all our work together to make sure that this can happen. We've been providing $300 checks to families. And more importantly, we've been able to connect them with resources in their area. Because of COVID, a lot of things have popped up, a lot of really useful and important things. But sadly, there's no one repository where people could go and look for them. So we wanted to make sure this wasn't just a $300 check, but also an opportunity to connect folks with their community. And the fund was created by 3 organizations, Massachusetts Jobs for Justice, which is the organization I work for, the Matahari Women's Workers Center, and the One Fair Wage Campaign. And then most importantly, we have a team of over 50 volunteers that are the ones that are able to make this work happen. Do you mind going to the next slide, please? So as I mentioned, 3 organizations came together. Jobs for Justice works, with working families all throughout the state. The Matahari Women's Workers Center works with women of color, immigrant women, and families to make sure that we can make improvements in our society and work towards human rights. And the One Fair Wage Campaign is really fighting for industry change to make sure we get rid of the sub-tip minimum wage, and basically all employees at least earn the minimum wage. So these are organizations that have worked together in the past, and sort of we came together to figure out how do we respond to this crisis that we're facing. Go to the next slide, please. But this didn't come out of nowhere. We were able to sort of be inspired by work that had been done in the past. For example, the Bay Area Jobs for Justice created a fund specifically for undocumented families during the forest fires in 2017. This was a population that basically got very little assistance, so they knew that this was where they had to step in and help. And also, we were able to get inspiration from the National Domestic Workers Alliance. They created a fund for domestic workers, and the One Fair Wage Campaign, which created a fund specifically for restaurant workers. Sort of learn from what worked, what didn't work from them to see how we could sort of create our own fund here in Massachusetts. Go to the next slide, please. So why MassUndocuFund, right? It's really important to remember that undocumented folks in Massachusetts and in many other states throughout the country have no access to federal or most state aid, no access to unemployment benefits, no access to health insurance. We're often relegated to low-paying jobs, especially in the service industry, which was one of the first ones to shut down once the pandemic really hit. And many don't have savings, right? Because they're relegated to these low-paying jobs and don't have family wealth to be able to rely on in moments of crisis. And as I mentioned, this isn't just a small population here in Mass. There's over 250,000 people. So this is why we felt like we needed to create this fund, particularly when the state wasn't stepping up like other places around the country that said, hey, let's use state funds to be able to help undocumented families. Sadly, a legislature sort of decided to turn their backs on the undocumented community. And we wanted to make sure that this wasn't charity, right? We wanted this to be mutual aid, something that was human-centered, that we ensured dignity and safety of our applicants. We didn't want them to feel like, hey, we're giving you some money. We want to make sure that they feel as part of our community. We also wanted to work with partners throughout the state and make sure that we were able to sort of be built to scale with those partners. Some of our partners have a staff of, 25. Some others are a group of 5 people that started a mutual aid network in their community. We wanted to make sure to be able to engage them all and to be able to sort of hop in the work that we were doing. And as I mentioned, we don't want this to be just a one-time sort of financial interaction with the applicants. We were also connecting them to organizations in their communities and to other work that was being done around them. And, and largely this was because we got the buy-in from progressive legislators in the state, from community leaders, and just from the undocumented community as well. Go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, we have these 3 organizations that started the fund, but we were able to bring in over 10 more organizations. But I really want to take a second to acknowledge our volunteers. These are folks who have been doing this work since late March, basically into April, and have continued to do this since then. A lot of us weren't working for a while, so it made sense to have this time to sort of help out. But even as they've gone back to work, as family responsibilities have grown, they've stayed because they've understood sort of the need for this fund. A lot of our volunteers have experience being undocumented or have experienced the immigration system in the US. I came in as a volunteer. I'm a formerly undocumented person. So really understand sort of what it feels like to be in a moment of crisis and have nobody provide a solution. And I think if it weren't for this group of amazing folks, we wouldn't have been able to fundraise over $1 million or have the reach we've been able to have. Go to the next slide, please. So just sort of giving you the sort of some important points we wanted to highlight. I could talk for 3 hours straight about all the amazing things we've been able to do, but I think these are important things to sort of highlight. As I mentioned, we have provided assistance to over 2,000 families already, and we're sort of budgeting that we'll have maybe the ability to assist 2,000 families more. We've reached every county in the state, 142 cities and towns. This was something we wanted to do very intentionally. Sometimes a lot of work tends to shift to the eastern side of Massachusetts, the Boston area, but there's some documented folks that work in more rural communities and in cities in Western Massachusetts, Central Massachusetts. They're often forgotten. And we wanted to make sure that we had sort of the reach to be able to help these folks in their communities. We've engaged with applicants representing 30 different countries, speaking a whole lot of different languages. Again, this is where our volunteers come in. We've been able to sort of do these intake calls in languages like Cape Verdean Creole, Haitian Creole, and Maya Quiche, which is an indigenous language of in Guatemala and parts of Mexico. Again, these are communities that are often forgotten when we talk about sort of responses to crises like this. We set this $1 million goal of fundraising as this pipe dream that, if we reach a quarter of that, we'll be happy and we'll call this a success. We've already gone over the $1 million, much of it coming from individual donors who donated their federal checks, who donated $10, $5, whatever they could. We've had undocumented families who have gone back to work, who have donated to the fund after. It's been incredible to see the community come together like that. And like I said, we want it to be more than just a financial assistance program. So we've created worker resources like Know Your Rights, different resources for going back to work and going back to school in 8 different languages. And we've already seen over 30,000 people have downloaded our document, and that's without sort of people have just shared it with their friends. So we've known we've had the kind of reach that we really wanted to have. If you go to the next slide, please. But sort of, I think what's most important about this fund, like I think I've said it over 50 times in this 5 minutes, is we want it to be more than just $300 in someone's pocket. We know that's important, right? $300 could keep your light on, could feed your family for a month, could sort of really help, even though we know it's not going to fix all the issues someone might have during a pandemic. We want it to be so much more than that. So now we're really thinking through the next step, right? So we have all these folks that we've been able to connect with. We've been able to connect them with their local worker center, with their local resources around them. So now we're moving sort of into a phase 2 where we're going to try to really build these connections we made with community partners, some that we had never worked with before, some that we've had really long relationships with. And also we want to make sure that we're able to develop leaders in the community. We do the intakes for the fund over the phone, and we've had volunteers interview folks sort of to know more about them, sort of know what they do for work, what challenges they've had at work. So we really want to make sure to develop leaders out of that so that they can go back to their communities. And, next time something like this happens, because sadly this won't be the last time something like this happens, we as a community are better prepared to respond. And we don't even have to rely on the state to step up, because sadly they probably won't again. Go to the next slide. So yeah, I want to again thank Ori and Winnie for the beautiful piece of art you created, and also for thinking about organizations like ours. This helped us connect with a lot of folks who may be outside of our networks. And hats off to Compass Family Services. What you all do is super inspiring, and I'm so glad I've been able to connect, even though we're on the other side of the country, sort of learn about what you all do. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Juan Pablo, for that presentation. I think a couple of things that really stand out to me from that is first of all, the fact that it's a mostly volunteer-run organization. And so it's other people who, many of whom have, like you said, been undocumented and had that experience in the States, and who are, probably also going through a really difficult time right now, with everything going on. And then they're putting their extra time in volunteering to distribute this fund to people in need. That's incredible. And I think the fact that you've had such a far-reaching impact on 100 cities across the state and people from 30 different countries, it's just such important work. And thank you so much for what you're doing to support the community in Massachusetts. So we're gonna dive into the Q&A. One thing I want to share first, because we're fresh off of those presentations, and I just want to pull this up real quick so you have this link. So as I mentioned before, we are at the point where we have covered all of our self-publishing costs. So any money that goes towards purchasing one of these books, any profit that comes out of that is split equally between the two organizations. The only money we take out is to ship you the book, and some platform fees, which is like 3% or something to cover the website that we get the donations through. But I really, want to encourage folks to support these two amazing organizations that we just heard so much about. They're doing such important work in this time, and you can go to this link here, oristories.com/book launch, and you can purchase a book, and it will be shipped to you anywhere in the USA. And we also have the option, if you're feeling extra generous, if you want to buy 2 books and donate one to a family in need, whether at a hospital or at a children's mental health clinic or a doctor's office or some place that it can get to a child who might not otherwise have the opportunity to get new books. That's also something available to you. So with that, I will turn it over to Winnie. I don't know if any questions have come in so far. If not, this is the time you can ask all 4 of us, how many are there? 4 of us, yeah. All 4 of us, any questions about the book, about these organizations, about these communities, and also feel free to just unmute yourself and also speak up if you'd like to. It would be great to hear your voices and see who's here. So yeah.
So Ori, we do have two questions. One which you already answered, which is where can we order it? So you can find it on the oristory.com. And I saw that a few folks put up the ordering link in the Zoom chat, so I can also repost that. And then the second question is a question around your workbook, Ori. Is that also available for pre-order? How does that work?
Totally. So that part of it is free, whether or not you buy the book. So that is up on the website under, let me put it in the chat, but it's at www.oristories.com/Cody's guide. So I would love, please feel free to download that, use it with your kids, share it with your nephews, give it to your neighbor. Everyone's got obstacles that they're facing in their lives. So help these little kiddos that we're having our lives through these problems that they're facing. So that's definitely available.
And then we also have a question, Ori, I think from your family. When will the books be ready to ship?
Well, thank you for that question. I think it was from my dad. So we are working with a small printing company, and just like the rest of the world, they are experiencing COVID-related delays. So while we anticipated originally that we would have the books around this time, and that's why we have the book launch now, we got notice that the books won't be printed until October. So if you purchase something through my website, I am going to be personally sending all those out. So it's going to be quite an endeavor because there's already 400 books that I have to send out. So it will come to you in around early November.
Great. And I don't think we have any more oh, here's one question from Krista. Have you considered other languages?
Hi, Krista. Thanks for joining. We haven't yet. I think that would be something to think about. It maybe if we, yeah, I don't know. That's a great idea. I've thought about an ebook to make it more accessible because that can be a little cheaper for people to spread that around. And then, yeah, it could be really cool to consider doing it into other languages. So if anyone is interested in helping with translation, you know how to reach me. Contact page on oristories.com. Oh, hey, Juan Pablo, thank you.
Great. Well, we have two new questions. What is the age group for this book?
Yeah, so this book, I imagine it being like 4 to 8. And I think there's a sweet spot of around 6 to 7, because what's kind of tricky about on the older side of it, I think they could start really getting some of like like having more conversation around the philosophy and the therapeutic value of it. And for a younger kid, it might be a little more just about like the story. So I think 6 to 7 is kind of the point where they're not too old to like think it's too cheeky or too kiddish, and also benefit from the concepts of it. I also think, and I mean this wholeheartedly, like I have done a lot of ACT work myself, and I think that the workbook can be valuable for anyone of any age, you know, into elementary school and even older. So if any of you, you know, are curious, you can also feel free to use it for yourselves.
Great. And then Evan asks, do we see a series for this book, or is this just a one-off book?
Well, hi, Evan. Thanks for joining. Good to see you. I think this book, as of now, I don't have any plans to make a series, but I do have interest in making kind of a series of children's books around utilizing concepts from therapy and bringing them into children's books. So one idea that I've been working with is around the philosophy of unconditional positive regard that Carl Rogers created. which is sort of relevant to like unconditional love. But so I have a manuscript that I'm working on around that. So if you are interested in hearing about new releases, there's also on my website at the bottom, there's an option to join my newsletter. And also in the purchase form, you can check that box, and I'll keep you posted if anything else comes out.
And then I love JT Stanley's question. How has media outreach been to spread word of the book and fundraising?
Media outreach has been great. I worked on creating a press release, which was something I'd never done before, but Google is very helpful in gaining new skills. So I like learned how to make a press release, and then researched a number of different journalists who wrote on relevant topics in Boston and San Francisco. And then I sent it out to about 27 journalists last week, and I heard back from only one. So pretty low success rate, but the one that I heard back from was from the Boston Globe, and they published an article on Tuesday under their category of acts of kindness, which I really liked that title. And since Tuesday, we've had 50 new donors and raised over $1,500 just in the last 2 days. So it's actually been a really incredible reach on that. And I've been really grateful to them for writing it.
And I think that's a perfect segue into probably our last question now that we're at 6:58. And that last question is, how else can we spread the word about the book and share with others?
Yeah, this video, the Zoom recording will be made available, and I'll post that on my website as well as on the event page on Facebook. And I'll probably send it out actually to folks who have RSVP'd. So feel free to share that. When the book comes out later on, everyone who's purchased it, I'll likely ask you if you enjoyed it, to write a, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like a review or like a sentence of what you thought about it to share on my website. Also sharing it with teachers, parents, youth mental health workers, anyone who you think might be interested in this. I'd love for you to share it with them. And I'm also so happy to talk about this stuff all the time. So if anyone's curious to learn more about this book, just feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be happy to provide other ways to spread the word and to utilize the book. And it's looking like it's 4:59 out here in Colorado, which means we have 1 minute left. So I just want to take a moment to say thank you so much to everybody who is here. And I really appreciate the support of this book. As I shared, it's a really personal journey for me, and it's been part of my own mental health journey, and it's been really therapeutic for me to write this book. So it feels really wonderful to be able to share it with folks. I really appreciate Compass Family Services and MassUndocuFund for being here and the amazing work that you do, and to all of you all who are interested in learning more about their work. And I hope that you find use in this book, and I hope that if you haven't bought one already, go to that book launch website and buy one, buy two. I think I put an option on there for 25. I was being ambitious. And yeah, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to talk with anyone more about this book and the project.
Thank you, everyone.
So, yeah. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Ori. Thanks, Winnie. Have a great rest of the day.
You too.
Same to you, Stacy.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, Juan Pablo.